Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Other Side podcast. My name is John, and I'm joined here with my buddy Nick.
How's it going, everyone?
And today we are going to talk about haunted schools and haunted colleges because we're both educators, and I believe we both have had experiences.
I would second that.
So, do you want to start with our personal ones?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so just jump in whenever you want. We'll jump into it. We're not sponsored, not because we're like Dr. Disrespect. It's just because we're small. So I guess let's get into it. The school that I spent the most of my career in, I was able to create a paranormal club, and we would have investigations with the students. I tried to do this to teach them history through ghost stories. And then it turned into, we're just going to scare the shit out of ourselves every day after school. And that's because something started to communicate back to us. We would get spirit boxes and everything else like that and try to have investigations to see if I could get them to research stuff and learn history. And we continuously got a couple names. And the two that stand out the most are Stan and Sarah. Now, I didn't know who these people were. I hadn't been at this school very long when this started, but I kept getting the name Stan. He wanted to talk to somebody. Couldn't find really any good record of it. None of my students could find record of it. So we went to some of the employees that had been there for a couple of years, and Stan was a janitor who had worked there.
I think we've been correct on that. He was a maintenance person at the school district.
He was a maintenance person that worked there. I apologize. So we got this identifier. It could be this Stan. He had passed away. He had loved the school. His ashes may or may not have been spread around the property. So we started to ask for that Stan specifically. And we got responses. He would respond to it. He would say, yeah, that's me, through the spirit box. People who knew him would come into the room, and we captured an EVP. Do you remember what it said?
Oh, I remember what it said, but let's put that in there for them to listen to. Are you the one spiking this device up to the third yellow? And we will let you figure out if you can hear what we heard on that. But we think we got a name.
The name that we think we got from it is the name of the woman who told us about Stan. We think it says their name, and it's me or something close to that. I really don't want to expose anybody here. So you can figure that part out on your own. Now, Stan wasn't the only person responding to us through spirit boxes and everything else like that. We also heard a lot of urban legends, and this came from students, educators that had been there for years, the janitorial staff that had gone to school there. Everybody had some sort of strange encounter, specifically with a little girl in a blue dress. Now, the stories we were told, and you may have heard different, is that allegedly a little girl leaned over the banister to the second floor of the school, was either saying something to her friends or she was playing and just leaning over it, and she fell head first and broke her neck on the concrete floor below. Some of the other stories we've heard is that back in the day, in the early 1900s, there was a giant flood that wiped out most of the town, and that she could have possibly died in that flood. Now, no matter what the origin story is, numerous people have seen a little girl in a blue dress with a white bow around it, walking within that school all kinds of different times. But they'd see this little girl all the time, and one of those people was the night janitor. He would be there at different hours of the night, cleaning, doing his job, and he swears he was in the library and he was vacuuming the rug. He looked up and he saw a little girl in a blue dress walk across the room and disappear. Have you heard any other stories than that?
Not on that, no. Other stories that have happened inside of our school, also including the janitorial staff. One night while they were cleaning the locker rooms, somebody or something kept turning the lights off whenever the janitor would bend down to clean something up. And eventually she'd had enough, yelled out, "Stop it!" And after that, lights didn't shut off anymore.
I mean, my very first full day at the school, I wasn't even working yet. I got off of my other job. It was my first year teaching. I got there at 9 o'clock to decorate my classroom. I'd been there for maybe an hour or two. All of the hallway lights were off. I was the only person in the school. My door was shut because I'm a wiener, and in my head, I felt like there's going to be something staring at me in the hallway. I'm hanging up stuff on my bulletin board, and then there's 3 louder than knocks on my door. Like it sounded like the door was going to come off of its hinges and fall into the room. I freaked out, and I thought maybe there's a teacher there, a janitor there. They're messing with me. Opened the door, went out in the hallway. Nobody was there. Of course not, because it was a Friday night during the summer. I still can't explain it. There's nothing in the hallways. I would have been able to hear them if they went up the stairs or were upstairs, because you move a little bit in that school and you can hear the creaks. But one of the other names we keep getting is the name Sarah. And in my head, and I think you might agree, we think that could be the girl in the blue dress.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately for me, as we've investigated, we've tried a few different things that the students suggested, and that didn't always go well, much like when we tried to do the Estes method. When we did it, and if you're unfamiliar, this is when somebody gets a spirit box that goes through all of the radio frequencies. You're supposed to be able to hear voices. Ghosts are supposed to be able to communicate through those radio channels, through the static. You take a spirit box and you connect it to noise-canceling headphones so you can't hear anything that's being said. You blindfold yourself. You have no outside input, and you say what you hear. Personally, I didn't think it would work, and Nick was the person who was asking questions, and apparently, I said some weird stuff.
Yeah, so questions kept being asked, and we kept getting responses that were pretty direct responses each time we were asking questions, and I could tell he couldn't tell what we were saying because there was a lot of noise going on in the room with kids trying to ask questions over each other, me trying to get them to quiet down a little bit so that we can make sure we're asking one question and getting an answer before we moved on, or if we didn't get an answer, we gave enough time in there for there to be an answer given. And eventually it got to the point where it looked like John was starting to get a little bit stressed out, and so we kind of stopped and had him take off, and that's when he told us a story that kind of shocked all of us.
So, I don't know what I was answering. If you ever do it, it kind of feels like you get tunnel vision or you're dreaming. You're just trying to focus on what you're hearing. I mean, I'd recommend, if you're curious, try it with a friend. That way you can kind of understand it. If you're scared of it, don't do it. But if you're curious, you're not scared about it, try it. You'll kind of pick up what I'm saying.
A lot of people like to say it's like you're going into a trance.
Yeah. I'm focused on listening to stuff. I can't see anything. I'm blindfolded. Like, the only thing I can feel is the desk, the child's desk I'm sitting in. And I don't know how to explain it. And I sound crazy when I do explain it. But as I'm answering questions, I'm saying what I hear, an image just like pops into my head. It's like somebody turned on a TV and it was there for maybe 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and then it went away. And it was of a little girl. I would assume she was about 12. She was disgustingly pale. She kind of looked like the people that were beyond the wall in Game of Thrones. She had really piercing blue eyes. She was super pale. She had dirt all over her face. But it was a solid picture. Like, it wasn't angry, it wasn't scary, it wasn't menacing, but it was just like a girl with like Scandinavian features, I guess would be the best way to put it. Personally, I think that could have been the girl in the blue dress. I'm not sure. When I got out of it, I took the headphones off, calmed down everything. The kids kept saying I was talking about someone being buried
underneath his room.
Yeah, so there's a possibility of it. The school was built on top of a flooded town. They just bulldozed the houses into their basements and then built a wall up so the water couldn't get there. I don't know. I'm still trying to go through historic records to find evidence of a Sarah that would have perished in that. But also, if the whole town floods, it's going to be a little hard to find records of a lot of that. So that's pretty much the main things that happened to me, other than us taking some of the students on ghost hunts with local paranormal investigators for events that were happening at the school. Plenty of strange stuff happened there, but I know that you've had some pretty strange things happen in your room.
So the way our school is set up, my room is kind of secluded from the rest of the building just because all of the other classes are down a hallway quite a good distance away from me. So throughout school days, there will be times when either I or students will hear knocks on the doors. We go out, there's nobody there. And you can say, well, that's just kids messing with you. But again, it's pretty hard for a student to be in that area during class time. And we would catch them on the security cameras, which every time we've looked, there's been nobody there. And I personally, in my classroom, have heard knocks on the walls to the rooms that I have inside of my room, because I have a couple of side rooms. And that's happened when I've been the only one in my room. The freakiest thing was last school year. I don't remember exactly what was happening, but I was there after school till late, and I'm sitting there in my room by myself, and all of a sudden I have some symbols that were up on a shelf that just roll. And it wouldn't have been the air, because the air had been going the entire time, and I've never heard the symbols that were on that shelf ever roll before.
They've been there all year too, right?
Oh yeah, they had been there since the school year before.
Okay.
And it's only ever happened that one time to me. But that freaked me out, and I remember looking over at that and yelling, hey, I ain't got time for this today. I've had reports from the janitors when they've been cleaning my room of the doors on those side rooms jingling when nobody else is in the school. Somebody messing around so much that they went to go check to see who was in the room, because it was kind of late at night and there shouldn't have been anyone there, and nobody being there. And when we had that paranormal group, we ended up having what I like to say was an hour-long conversation with the flashlight turning on and off by itself.
And here's the weird part about it. In my head, I like to be a skeptic, but I've had weird stuff happen. Those flashlights, I want to say it's the heat making the metal expand and contract, and that's why it's turning on, because they loosen the back, so you just put a little bit of pressure, the light turns on. It was perfect to everything we asked. Like, if there's somebody here with us, make the light turn on 3 times in a row. Boom, boom, boom. If it was every once in a while, maybe. But these direct questions, it's turning on that many times. I told the guy he was full. I unscrewed the flashlight, went through it all. There's no remote, there's no sensor, nothing that could have made it do it. All of the other paranormal investigators in there, they were paying attention. They didn't have any other device in their hand.
And nobody was near this flashlight. It was across the room from everybody who was in the room. So there was zero chance of somebody walking up and it happening like that, too, because we were all on the opposite side of the room, not moving.
I will say the freakiest part of all of that, I had messaged one of the janitors, I didn't expect a response because it was like 1 a.m. Hey, what's the name of the maintenance man that passed away so we can ask for him? Boom, it popped up on my phone. I'm trying to record these lights flash, and the message pops up. I let it go away, and they have this little box. I think it's called an obelisk.
Yeah.
And it's spitting out words every once in a while. Apparently ghosts can generate a word with it, but it's not a spirit box. It's not constantly
It
going.
has a word bank in it that the energies in the room can manipulate to choose specific words.
Yeah, so it's sitting there. This notification goes off of my screen. Not on there anymore. I'm still recording. As soon as it goes off my screen, you hear across the room, open it. They're like, open what? And I was like, I just got a message, guys. I'm so scared right now. And that's the closest I've ever been to in my pants at school since kindergarten.
So, one of the other things we were thinking about is looking at some of the colleges across our great country who have had different experiences with paranormal events. I went to a small school in the state we're in, and one of the buildings, which is a dorm building, is kind of known for being haunted at the campus, mostly because there have been a couple of suicides that happened there. And that's why I'm not naming any of this stuff. Well, basically, the legend has it that a young woman tragically ended her life by jumping off of the 9th floor. She landed in the lobby on the 1st floor, was rushed to the hospital where she passed away due to her injuries. Students in that dorm report eerie experiences all the time, such as televisions turning on themselves and a constant feeling of never being truly alone in their rooms. One of my friends, during a period of time where we were on campus early, was in his dorm room by himself, and really I think he was one of the few people who were actually in this dorm at the time. And he captured on camera the bathroom door opening up by itself and the shower turning on. When we had gotten back from the activities we had done that day, all of his stuff had been moved from the bed, or from the floor to his bed as well.
What?
Yeah. He was kind of freaked out, and I told him
being messy.
I told him to come and spend the night in my room because no one needs to deal with that, especially by themselves.
Jesus.
And there are ghost stories pretty much from all over college campuses. Everyone wants to say there's stuff that happens. One of the ones that I know isn't afraid to talk about their experiences is Ohio Wesleyan University in Delaware, Ohio. So Ohio Wesleyan, there's a lot of different stories from that campus, and they have had people from their security force who have gone and done paranormal investigations of most of the buildings on campus. When I was in high school, our band did our band camp there, and we got to hear from those people themselves their experiences. And they were talking about being chased out of the music building and all this other stuff. But the story that freaked me out the most just so happened to be the dorm room, or the dorm building we were staying in. At one point in time before this building was renovated, there was one room that had been boarded up and was left boarded up because of the experiences that had been happening inside that room. So one person was staying in that room, ended up demanding to change, and the RA was like, no, there's no need for that. So the RA ended up spending the night inside of that room, and after that night is when it was boarded up.
You can't switch rooms. Let me show you. You're just a...
Yeah, pretty much.
We gotta lock them up.
As soon as that night was over, the RA came out and was like, nope. Another one from the same dorm building actually caused the student that this experience happened to transfer back to their home state. And there was a student who was at the university both to study and to play football. He's in his dorm one night by himself when all of a sudden he looks over at the sink because it had turned on, and he sees a girl.
Hot.
She looks over at him and says hi. The only problem was she didn't have any legs. The guy, after seeing this, was so freaked out, he left and never came back. He drove home to Virginia from around Delaware, Ohio, if you don't know, is around Columbus, Ohio, and just straight up left and drove back to his home state and never came back to campus.
I wouldn't. If I saw somebody without legs, I assume they're like normal height, so they're just floating.
Yeah. And that apparition has actually been seen multiple times and has been known to be a protector of the students who live in that dorm building.
That's awesome.
It's believed to have been a teenage girl who was at an orphanage in the town who tragically passed away in a fire in that dorm building a long time ago, and she just never left. Another story involving that ghost, there was a girl who was in an abusive relationship, and she was trying to get away from her boyfriend, who was trying to hurt her. And the girl appeared in front of her, looking at the boyfriend, telling him to leave.
What college is this?
Ohio Wesleyan.
Wesleyan has a legless protector.
Yes.
That's awesome. Dude, let's go. Dude, it's on their website.
Yeah.
What? Holy crap.
There's stories of ghosts singing in the music building, going around what they call the Great Chapel, playing the pipe organ and all this other stuff. It's a insane... It really is an insane story when you look at it and you start hearing some of the stuff that's happened there. But, yeah, it's a pretty cool paranormal area, and it is a pretty campus.
Let's go. Let's go become security guards. Dude, that makes me think they're in a chapel doing stuff. I didn't think that like ghosts could be in church or anything like that. They call it the Great Chapel, but I think it's an auditorium. Oh, well, that completely ruins my story. But
yeah,
I was gonna say, like, I was a little kid and we were messing around at my grandma's church. We ran upstairs to the part that like overlooks the whole area where you sit for the sermon. We go up there. The lights aren't automatic. It's an old church. It's one of the pull string lights. The light's on. We're messing around up there, and we hear something pulled the light, and we're like freaking out.
So one of the hall's more notable stories is that of the sealed room. In the 1950s, a female student living in a ground floor room stopped attending classes and wasn't heard from for nearly a week. Then one night, other residents of the hall heard screams and found the woman rocking back and forth on the floor of her room and talking incoherently, except to say that someone or something was out to get her. The room was in shambles, and a makeshift noose made from the sheets was found under the bed. The student eventually withdrew from the school. Other students assigned to the room quickly asked to be transferred after strange happenings. To quell the commotion, a university administrator volunteered to stay in the room for a night and once and for all put the rumors to rest. The administrator made it through the night in the room, but when he came out the next morning without explanation, he ordered the room sealed. Students at the hall, which eventually became a co-ed dorm, continue to report unusual occurrences. They say they have seen a woman with long hair and in a white dress, who when asked to leave turned around to reveal she was faceless. Another student saw a woman picking up laundry. When he asked her if she needed help, she disappeared.
Well, that story makes me think NKU. Northern Kentucky University has a place called Callahan Hall, and it was once a nursing home back in the day. And there's like an urban legend that a woman named, I think it was Millie Dimler, something like that. She was in charge of the whole place and allowed patients to just basically be neglected and abused and sometimes beat them herself, just didn't care, didn't do her job. And you can look it up online and find this. The facility was actually investigated by the state of Kentucky because there's so many complaints of negligence, and a bunch of patients had actually died there. And like as the story goes, this Millie lady, she was just evil. One day she went to her office, and some of the patients had snuck in there and drugged her coffee, drugged her drink, whatever she was drinking, and it killed her. Now, according to the lady that's in charge of like housing at NKU. There's stories, and they lean into it around Halloween, that she now haunts Callahan Hall's basement, which was her old office. Now, every year they have Callahan's haunted house, and it's inspired by this story. And she even went on the news and said a week or so before our haunted house last year, I went downstairs, was walking down one of the hallways, making sure everything was set up correctly. Out of nowhere, things just started falling behind me. Boxes, papers, everything. It was so creepy. I'm not the kind of person to believe in that kind of stuff, but it was spooky. I couldn't explain it to anybody, and there's no reason that stuff should have fell. I'm assuming it's Millie. If you ever are around NKU, it's completely free to get into this haunted house, and you may be dealing with more than just people trying to scare you. There might be ghosts there too, but I think that's awesome that they're leaning into it. I mean, we did that at our school. We had a haunted house that was themed after the girl in the blue dress.
Yeah, that's kind of after this is when a lot of stuff started picking up at our school.
Do you think it could be like a tulpa?
I don't know about that, or if they just were like, hey, we're here, listen to us.
Maybe. It's either, hey, you've recognized us enough to profit off of us, or we created it.
I hope we didn't create it.
It'd be a lot cooler if we didn't. But there's a bunch of weird stuff that happens at schools. Like, my mom's a teacher and her school's haunted. There was a few days we'd stay after school. It was me, her, and my cousin. We'd hear footsteps in the hallway. I didn't think anything of it, but I had just started watching Ghost Hunters and Taps and everything like that. But I just started watching that, and my grandpa got me a little DVR, little digital voice recorder, so I had it with me at all times. So I turned it on. We're walking through the hallways, and we're on this really long hallway, go around a little curve. It's a long hallway, go straight to the office. That's how we got outside. Well, about in the middle of it's the gym. As we're making our way down there, we hear the dust mop shaking the gym. There's no one else there. So we get out to the car, pause the DVR once we get in the car. My mom plays it back. I didn't know how to use it. I knew how to hit record. And instead of hearing a dust mop, it kind of sounds like, could someone help me?
Oh.
It was the freakiest thing ever, dude. I brought that to school the next day. I thought I was the baddest on the block. I'm like, listen to the ghost. And everyone thought it was fake. It's like, I was there, I promise. That same school, there's an old janitor named Mr. Lee, which Mr. Lee was a G. He was like 90 years old, and he loved telling ghost stories. But all of them were allegedly real. Like, they thought somebody had broken into the school one night because they saw lights turning on and off, like like a shadow figure, I guess, through a window. So a cop entered the building, and they found Mr. Lee on the ground having a heart attack, and he was the only one in the school. But my favorite story of his freaked me out because it was right by my mom's room. So as a little kid, I'd like always sit out there and try to see if I could see it happen. He was cleaning the hallways at night, and if you're ever in a school at night, not all the lights are on, but they have some of the overhead lights on, like every other one or every third one. And he hears the water fountain turn on in the hallway that he had mopped. So the hallway's wet, the water fountain turns on, he looks, and it looks like a person's drinking from it because the stream of water is stopping, like it's hit someone's face and like dripping down from there. And he's staring at it, it stops, and then he sees wet footprints appear where he mopped, and they go down the hallway. Like, he might have been making it up. I was a little kid, but I want to believe him. He said it with such, like, sincerity. And plus, that was a school where, like, you could hear voices in the hallway. There's little, I want to say closets, but it wasn't even that because there's windows. There's little places to hang, like, your backpack and coat between the rooms. Like, the room shared that. It was in the very back, and there's an emergency exit there. And you could always hear people, it sounded like they're standing in that room talking. So unless the teachers were outside smoking all the time, I don't know what it was. Well, if there was an abrupt cut, it's because we started talking about Ohio Wesleyan University and decided that it should be a whole episode by itself. We were going to tell one story, and we went down a rabbit hole, and we're not going to get anywhere right now. So I guess that's it for this episode. It's the first episode back after almost a year-long hiatus, besides the 3 AI videos I tried to make that didn't turn out well. So if you like it, please let us know. Don't forget to like, subscribe, favorite it, follow us on iTunes and Spotify, give us a 5-star review, whatever you want to do. If you want more of this, just let us know. And with that, we'll see you next time when we take a look at things from the other side.